life, your term show.
Okay, we are with Mike Cook. I appreciate you chatting, Mike, especially all the way from Alberta. Is that where you are right now? I think you're at home.
I'm in Calgary.
Right,
I'm in Calgary, Alberta.
Calgary.
Yep.
Yeah, we're in Ontario. We're sworn enemies, Mike. So I appreciate you
not
doing
really. I was born in
I know,
Sudbury.
but I'm trying to have some fun here.
Sudbury, Ontario.
Oh, that's right. I always forget that. I always forget that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You've transplanted yourself.
Yeah.
And
I have a soft spot for Ontario. Lived.
I thought you were going to say you had a soft spot for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
No, not at all. No,
really?
No soft spot for them.
That's very disappointing to hear. So you're a Calgary Flames fan.
I'm a Calgary Flames fan and not an Edmonton Oilers fan. So
hey, I know enough about the politics there to know that that's the case.
Yeah,
but
I'm not popular at my house because I'm not cheering for the Oilers, despite the fact the rest of my family is. They're saying, we got to get the cup back in Canada, and I'm like, I can't cheer for the Oilers.
Wow, that's hardcore.
It is.
Wow.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this: if you had to choose between the Oilers winning the cup or the Toronto Maple Leafs, who would you choose?
Oh, well, that is a tough one. As a independent Alberta guy, I think I might have to go for the Oilers in that case. Yeah.
Wow.
I did spend some of my childhood in Montreal too, like my teenage years.
Oh my gosh. Now you're going to tell me you're some kind of Habs fan. You'd rather have the Habs win than the Toronto Maple Leafs? Don't tell me this. This is my worst nightmare. This is the worst nightmare scenario.
Worst start to a podcast.
The Habs winning, for any Habs fans out there, there's Anthony. Yeah, there's Anthony. For any Habs fans out there, I definitely do not want the Habs to win. I would like every Habs fan to know that, because I've been tormented by Habs fans my whole life.
Right.
So I have every right to say that I don't want the Habs to win and the Toronto Maple Leafs to win. I'd be happy for McDavid if Edmonton wins. I'm not sure I'm happy for the Oilers to win.
I get it. I totally agree with you on that. Yeah. But though, not to talk hockey too much, both Sam Bennett and Matthew Tkachuk were former Flames, and I liked them both when they were playing for the Flames. So being down
that's
in
interesting
Florida,
you say that, because one is from Ontario and the other's from the U.S. So
right.
I'm just saying that means Alberta is importing Ontarians and Americans to produce a good team. I'm just saying. You
hit the nail on the head though, because even when you talk about getting the cup back to Canada, the players, even on the Leafs, don't really represent Canada. Austin Matthews is from Arizona.
We have a lot of Canadians on the Leafs now.
Sure.
And that used to be the case.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll move on. I'm sure you're a Nazem Kadri fan though, and he was a great Toronto Maple Leaf. We want him back. If you guys,
well, we can give him up.
Oh boy. We're gonna move. We're moving on from the hockey stuff. Yeah. So the reason I want to chat with you is because to me you have a very interesting background. I don't meet many people with your background who go down the rabbit hole of sound money and some of the problems that are causing the world by having a fiat-based currency. So could you just please introduce yourself and maybe share what you're doing now? But I do want to rewind and go back to some of your previous stories so that we can build some context around this.
Sure.
But so Mike Cook, please introduce yourself, what you're up to now, and a little bit of who you are.
Sure. So I am currently co-founder and I guess head of business or CEO or whatever you want to call it for a small company for Bitcoin Mentor. So I started this business, a little bit more than a year ago, under sort of the idea that I would like to turn my passion for Bitcoin into actually helping onboard the next wave of Bitcoiners the right way, helping them through this journey of taking Bitcoin self-custody without making some of the grave mistakes that people can make when they try and do it themselves, in one fashion. And the other is, it can be a daunting task to go through that process, to try and figure it out yourself. As I know firsthand, you can spend a lot of time doing it. So I decided that I wanted to start this business, help people get set up the right way with Bitcoin and their self-sovereignty and ownership. And I'm in Calgary, and so is Ben Perrin, who has been a speaker at your events, BTC Sessions, very well-known Bitcoiner. I had met Ben at some of the Calgary meetups and just had the good fortune of sitting beside him, watched a lot of his videos over the years, and we started up a chat. And I was, thrilled that his on-camera persona was identical to his real-life persona. I mean, it
really is, isn't it?
Yeah. He's just an awesome guy. Yeah. And we built up, a very sort of cursory rapport. But when I decided to start the business, knowing that Ben had done this one-on-one sort of mentoring or consulting with clients in conjunction with his channel, I said to him, listen, Ben, I'm going to start this business called Bitcoin Mentor. I want to bring in the best educators in the space to help grow this business and onboard people the right way. Do it through video consults, live, get people to learn what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how they're doing it. And before I even finished explaining it, Ben said, yeah, man, I want to do that with you. So that was, for me, a great outcome because, I have a business background, have been involved in several successful businesses, starting them up and running them. But Ben is the Bitcoin celebrity. So it was a really good match. Like, he has the platform and the personality and the celebrity status that is perfect for the launch of a business like that. So we are, basically working with individuals that are either, hardcore Bitcoiners that have Bitcoin on an exchange and that are afraid to sort of take that next step of setting up their, wallets and their multisigs and their vaults and their inheritance planning. And we're just kind of helping them through that process. And people typically watch Ben at some point in their Bitcoin journey. So it's a good match. So we can couple his expertise and his profile with relatively unknown, amazing Bitcoin mentors that are terrific at helping our clients go through that process. And that's kind of what we're doing right now. And fortunately for us, we have, go ahead.
No, keep going.
Yeah. Well, we have two mentors that are, near and dear to your heart in Aiden and Anthony. So they are also helping with the Rockstar team through the Bitcoin Mentor platform, which has been, amazing as well. So it's great. We have about 20 mentors in Canada, the US, and Australia. And we're just kind of, going through this process and helping onboard that next wave of Bitcoiners. And it's a passion project for me, and I love it. And I get to do what I love and hang out with some amazing people and tell the Bitcoin story.
So I'm going to ask you more about it, but I'm curious. I want to rewind a little bit on how your journey got to here, because you mentioned, several successful businesses, and then it was like the private equity world that you played in. Can you just tell us, I guess, were you retiring out of private equity and then discovered Bitcoin? Like, how do you, because I just find that most of my friends who are in some sort of traditional finance role, whether it is in some sort of capital markets that they're, playing in, or they're involved in some pensions or some, dealing with some bonds, whatever it is they're doing, if they're in downtown Toronto and what I would call traditional finance, they don't seem to understand what money is, first of all. So then they never get to the idea of questioning what sound money could be or should be, and then never ultimately get to Bitcoin. So like, what does that journey look like for you? Were you retired when you discovered Bitcoin? Like, how does this work?
Well, how about I rewind the clock a bit? So let's say 15 years ago, I would fit into that category of someone who really, wanted to make money and generate wealth, but really didn't understand what money was. But I had the good fortune of being a partner in that first private equity firm that I started up with a very brilliant guy who was a Austrian economist, sat on the Mises Institute of Canada. And he educated me on sort of these, tenets of sound money and libertarian philosophy and Austrian economics, just through casual conversation. Like, a very brilliant guy, really understood sort of all the problems in, with the money and in the economy and with government and all that kind of stuff. And a brilliant guy, a little bit crazy, but shared with me, this whole, all the flaws in the system. And through that process, I became more and more aware of, how to protect your wealth. And we did it in our business by buying long-standing, stable, cash-generating businesses from retiring baby boomer business owners and streaming the cash flow from those businesses out to our investor base. And as long as we were sort of, beating that rate of inflation, we were, preserving wealth and growing it. And that's basically was the kind of the first step, the first point of the dime dropping on, how to create and preserve wealth. And then once you have that wealth, I started, investing or allocating capital into precious metals. So that was kind of my foray into, that hard money, taking some cash flow, excess cash flow personally, putting it into some hard money that can't be printed. And through that process, I think I was open and awake to the idea of sound money. And then I had the other good fortune of another business we started, which was a private lending fund, mostly on, equipment financing, that kind of thing. We raised money and then we did equipment financing for, let's say credits that wouldn't typically go to the bank. So a little bit more higher risk credit. Okay. We put together financing packages for them for asset purchases, et cetera. I started
these are companies that needed like forklifts and machinery, and they just couldn't go to the bank.
Trucks. Okay. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Medium-sized company just doesn't have good standing at the bank, needed some funding. You guys would come in and finance.
They may have good standing, but sometimes, the banks move slow. I'm not sure you're aware of that. They don't seem quite as responsive.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. What are you talking about?
And one of my business partners in that business, who's still a good friend, his son was a young entrepreneurial guy based out of the Bay Area in California. And he was doing a Bitcoin lending fund. A little bit, not that well capitalized, like they were growing. But what they were doing is early stages, they were lending against Bitcoin to create liquidity for Bitcoiners to live their life. Like as a Bitcoiner, you don't really want to sell your Bitcoin. And what he explained to me was they have a zero default ratio, which is very unusual in sort of a credit fund. And the reason for that is, he explained, this is again at the time where I'm precious metals guy, hard money guy, cash flowing business guy. He explained that no matter what, when a margin call occurs, these Bitcoiners don't want to lose their Bitcoin. And they, add additional collateral or they pay off the loan. And it almost made me think, what is so special about this asset that people just don't want to lose it? Usually if you...
Mike, what year is that? What year is this?
That was in about 2018.
Okay.
2018.
Got it. So you started thinking this way. Got it. Okay.
I started thinking this way and thought, there's obviously something here. So I had the benefit of talking with Trevor. I actually bumped into him again at the Bitcoin conference. So it was kind of a full circle moment. Here I am with, Bitcoin mentor at the Bitcoin conference, and here's my mentor that brought me into the space. And
wild. So we should have just mentioned, and we saw each other in Las Vegas.
We saw each other there too.
Yeah, which was cool. Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's so cool that you bumped into that person. Amazing.
Yeah. So he helped me on that journey, kind of like what we do with our clients, but he explained to me all of the reasons that, Bitcoin may make sense as another bucket to allocate capital to. And so I did that in late 2018, started, buying a little bit of Bitcoin. And of course, it was, much more attainable price at that time to, dip your foot in, right?
Yeah.
And so what I did was started allocating some capital. And you may find that this is the case for you. But once you start putting some capital into something, where your mind goes, your money follows, or your money goes, your mind follows, and it's a virtuous circle. So I started putting a little bit of money into Bitcoin, then started spending a little bit more time learning about what I was putting my money into, and then realizing more and more, wow, the clouds were clearing, and this is where I want to spend, more of my capital and more of my time. So fast forward to the lockdown period, we all had a little bit more time. I was probably a self-described workaholic, worked as much as I could in building this business. But when the lockdowns occurred and dropped on us, I had a little bit more time to spend doing, a little bit more research, more podcasts, more listening, more learning. And that's kind of where I really went down the rabbit hole for Bitcoin, and then started allocating more capital. And in that period of time, I started realizing, hey, there's maybe a little bit more to life than just working like crazy to try and build this business. And I eventually asked my partners to take me out. Like I was.
Oh, wow. Okay. You may have told me that and I had forgotten okay. Wow.
Yeah. I was basically felt that we had done a great job for our investors. We'd bought 14 businesses across Canada, really solid capital structure. And I was the deal guy. So I did most of the deals and structured the deals, built the deal team. And I kind of felt like, hey, there's something else for me here. I'm going to, retire. And retirement is kind of boring. So I'm 54 now. At that time, I was, 51. And I got tired of just wearing T-shirts and sweatpants and just listening to podcasts. So I thought, you know what, I want to try and figure out what I can do in Bitcoin. And I had been helping friends and family and business associates with their Bitcoin journey, like buying Bitcoin, helping them get set up. And then as I decided to do this more seriously, the problem I ran into was most of the individual that I knew in my network saw me as the private equity guy, not the Bitcoin guy. So I had a bit of a gap that I had to bridge, like I needed something to, be
like when I left the software world into real estate, a lot of the software people or friends and network, they just couldn't believe I was in real estate for years. They just couldn't associate me with real estate, even though I was buying rental properties when I was in the software world. Yeah. And I had actually owned rental properties longer than my software career. But they didn't know that part of me. So yeah, I get it. Like you make that move and they just see you this way.
They see you this way. And they may see that you've been successful. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I want to explore that just a little bit further because I'm curious about it, but I want to rewind for a second. When you decided you wanted to be bought out and retire, was that, and I don't know if this is too personal, was that out of like just burnout, or was that like, I'm not getting enough, like emotional satisfaction from this anymore? Or was that like, I discovered something, in this, this money world that I need to explore different? Was it all of the above? Like, where did that moment come from? Because at my age, at 52, I have a whole bunch of friends in this phase, like right now, and everybody's coming at it a little differently. I'm curious about where were you in that? Like, where did that come from when you finally decided?
You hit the nail on the head. I think it was a culmination of all those things. So yeah, it was. First was, I think I was a little bit burnt out, and having sort of be required to stay at home opened my eyes a bit to, business can be done a little bit differently. I was a bit of an old school guy. You had to be in the office sharing ideas. I mean, we were an idea business, right? So we had to be, talking about the deals all the time and the opportunities and that kind of stuff. So I was very focused on, being in the office, having those ideas. So I think I was awaken a bit to the fact that things could be done differently. So that was the first thing. The second thing I think I realized after, working so hard and then being forced to be at home, I took my foot off the gas a bit and realized, whoa, you know what? There's a whole bunch of other stuff going on here, including spending more quality time with my family. Like, don't get me wrong. I never missed, any of the, sporting events or dance competitions or anything like that. But when you're really focused on, the business, sometimes you might be there, but I don't know how present you are. So I think I was made aware of that a little bit as well. And even just strengthening my marriage with Stacy, I think that was kind of a good opportunity to do that. And then lastly, the Bitcoin thing really did pique my interest. So all of those things together kind of worked to coalesce into, this is an opportunity. I feel like I'm leaving the business in a good spot. I'm not, I built a good team. So I think the people on my team were better at the business than I was. Oh, cool. So it worked out to be just an optimal time. Gave a good opportunity for the more junior folks to, step up and become partners. And I think it just worked out good.
Hey everyone, before we dive back into the podcast, I've got a quick shout out about the Your Life, Your Terms report. This is Tom's weekly newsletter where he and Nick share real stories, experiences, and powerful insights to help you live life on your terms. Each week, Tom breaks down the economy, real estate, macro trends, and Bitcoin, and gives you actionable steps to make these insights work for you. No fluff, no vague predictions, just a clear path to thriving no matter what's going on in the world. Tens of thousands of Canadians are already getting the real information they need to level up their lives every week. I can honestly say it's the only newsletter that I've stayed subscribed to for years. It delivers real value that keeps me coming back for more. Join us and start getting the insights and tools to create the life you want, plus entertaining and inspiring stories from Tom and Nick along the way. Sign up for free at rockstarinnercircle.com/get-started and start living life on your terms. That's rockstarinnercircle.com/get-started. Your first step to living life on your terms.
So that was kind of how things transpired. I can't say it was just one thing. I think it was probably all those things together, as you identified.
It was interesting. And yeah, just your comment on retirement, like my grandfather lived until he was 99, and I saw him in his like late 90s there on a horse going to the vineyard working. Like he just never retired, and he was happy right until the end, like, you know, mentally alert. And just, I think that's the way to do it. This concept in the, like, you know, quote unquote modern society where you work X number of years and then you're retired. Yeah. I just don't think that's like healthy for anyone. It's not like we're going to put Mike Cook out to pasture at the age of 54. You know what I mean? Like with all your wisdom and experience, like look at what you can apply now to like this young growing kind of business with all the experience that you have and what a benefit you can be there. Yeah, that just concept just doesn't sit well with me, like that you work until this day and then you're just done. It's just like, I don't know, what am I going to do now? Like, I'm just going to go for walks every day. I don't golf. Like, I guess I got to golf.
Well, I'm a golfer, but
yeah. Okay. So you're
always in mind too, like you, that I was going to work forever, like, you know, in some capacity. And then, you know, through that lockdown period, I kind of maybe pivoted a bit and thought, well, I can maybe take my foot off the gas. And after a little bit of that's
different. Yeah. For sure.
But then I realized that, you know, as a father of, you know, relatively, you know, 2 young adults and 1 teenager, that it wasn't setting a very good example to not be active. And I felt like I did have a lot to contribute. So, you know, to bring it back full circle on, you know, why I started the business, I was doing this work for friends and family and business associates. And I found it rewarding, but it was not gaining any momentum. Like, as I said, they didn't see me as the Bitcoin guy. They saw me as the private equity guy. So they would probably listen to me, but I felt like I needed a little bit more credibility, if you will, to be the Bitcoin guy. So I decided that, you know, I need to be a part of a team. I need some branding. Sort of has this sort of umbrella of, you know, this guy's an expert. And then I felt also that there were probably other people out there like me that wanted to do this, that wanted to bring people on board to Bitcoin the right way. And they had a passion for it. So that was kind of how I decided to, you know, build Bitcoin Mentor, because I didn't see that out anywhere else of an organization I wanted to join. And as a business guy, I thought, well, I can start it just as good as anyone else. So that's what I did. And then, you know, partnering up with Ben was kind of thing that really made it all come together. That was kind of the perfect endpoint, I think. And that's kind of where we have built from there.
And then when you were going down that exploration period of understanding what Bitcoin was, as you allocated a little bit of capital and then maybe allocated a bit more, what were some of the resources that like were really powerful at the time for you? So for me, I'll just share, like it was definitely the Bitcoin Standard. I read some of Robert Breedlove's articles. I think it was like the number zero was one of them or something. He had like 2 or 3, of those longer, like medium articles. Yeah. Really, really powerful stuff. So I'd say Robert Breedlove stuff.
Maybe Vijay Boyapati. I liked his.
I got to him late. I got to him The Bullish Case for Bitcoin, which is a book now and not just a Medium article. Got to him late. But those, Andreas Antonopoulos. I bought all his colored books, like one was yellow or purple. Okay. They're very thin books. They had a big impact on me. And that was like the spring into the summer of March of 2020. So like same
you were
kind
in a
of
similar time period as me as well.
Yeah. I went from like the pandemic shuts down. Everything just stops. My brother and I are in the real estate office here. There's no real estate. This is before the real estate madness. Right. Nothing is happening, but we had to keep the office open to accept deposit checks on real estate that was closing. Right. So it was us two and then one person at the front of the office just to continue operations. We were one of the businesses, Mike, that was allowed to operate. Yeah. Okay. It was safe for us, Mike. It wasn't safe for anybody else. It was safe for us. Okay. Yeah. And then I was just in the corner of the office, like just reading. And I think it was like, I think it was like some of the macroeconomic stuff I was looking at, and it was just like everything was pointing to money printing, and it was just, I had already been a gold guy, so I understood that.
Okay. Yeah.
And then someone mentioned this book, The Bitcoin Standard. I think I'd heard it 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, what is this book?
Right.
And then I read it, and then I allocated a little bit to Bitcoin. And then, like, just like you, it's like you think about it a little bit more, and you're like, wait a second, is this like, if this is really what I think it is, a decentralized network that is global, that no individual controls, that is emerging here, like a second internet network, but one that contains the value and not the information.
Right.
I don't know, like there's something more here. And then I just started devouring like everything. And then I eventually got to, I think, Jeff Booth's book, maybe in the fall of 2020, if that makes sense. I don't know if the book was out then or not. But and then
it's
that
hard
book
to keep track, isn't it? Like
it is, yeah. I can't. It was all coming fast and furious. But then Jeff Booth's book just like threw me upside down. I was like, whoa, deflation.
Well, and that was an interesting one too, because he didn't really touch on Bitcoin until the very end of the book.
I think he mentions the word once in the whole book.
Yeah. So it wasn't really a Bitcoin book. It was more of a eye opener to the problems we're all facing, that most people are aware of, but they can't identify what the problem is. And I think that's kind of where we are maybe, one step ahead on the playbook with than regular people, because we've done the research. We know what the problem is. We've identified what a potential solution is. I think everyone around knows there's a problem. They just can't put their finger on what the problem is.
Exactly. So, and so I hogged all that. What were some of your influences during that time?
Oh, yeah. I think very similar, Tom. I'm looking sort of, I've got a bookshelf here, and it's hard for me to remember. I've probably got 50 books here, and it's hard for me to remember when I read them and when I did. But I would read, I would listen to, I don't know, podcasts.
Oh yeah, the podcasts were endless. Yeah.
And I typically, my family thinks I'm crazy, but I'm typically listening to podcasts at, 2 to 2.5 times speed, just so I can devour more of it. And it got to the point where I think this was for me, maybe when I decided that, I needed to do something in Bitcoin, because no matter who I talked to, including everyone in my family, all the friends we had, I would always bring up Bitcoin. I felt it was a responsibility to be telling people that, you need to be looking at this Bitcoin stuff. And I think even at the time of, I don't know if I have my timing right, but I would talk to friends on the golf course or whatever. I'm like, Bitcoin's at $10,000 Canadian. Like, there's only 21 million. That's all there will ever be. You're a wealthy guy. Like, buy one Bitcoin, like $10,000. If I'm wrong and you're wrong and it goes to zero, big deal. You lose $10,000. But other than that, you've got 1/21 millionth of all the available supply that's ever going to be out there. I thought that was a super compelling argument, but I may only have, had, a couple people take me up on that idea. And now I have people all the time saying, I wish I would have listened. But
sure,
people.
But now they also think like they missed the boat.
That's what I hear all the time too. That they missed the boat. And I bought Bitcoin yesterday, and I think we're approaching all-time high. I'm still buying all the time. I think I wake up more at 3 a.m. thinking, gee, I don't think I have enough Bitcoin, as opposed to I've got too much.
Well, once you start thinking in Bitcoin, I think I had phases of my evolution that, like, once I started pricing things in Bitcoin terms, it took me a long time to get there. Yeah. But I thought, oh my gosh, like, life does get cheaper if you're on a personal Bitcoin standard where you can put your savings in Bitcoin, because we were looking at a family car. I've shared this story before, and the family car was going to be 1.5 Bitcoin, I think, a year and a half ago, something like that. Or was it a year and a half or last fall? Anyway, a little while ago, it was 1.5 Bitcoin. And today, that same car is like 0.65 of a Bitcoin. Right.
Yeah.
So, what happens is when people around you are saying, well, the price of everything is going up, when you put yourself on a Bitcoin standard, the price of everything is actually going down.
Yes. It's a total paradigm shift, eh?
And it's so hard to articulate that to people. And you yourself don't recognize it, because when you first jump in and you buy like $500 of Bitcoin, you can't really get there. But once you start to put more of your savings in it, you can start to look at it in that way. And it's really a game changer. It really makes you think, oh, there is some like hope. I can stay ahead of the madness here. So that took me a little while to, okay.
And I mean, it's not unlike, when people talk about, an ounce of gold, back in Roman times. I think you hear this, you'd be able to buy a nice, custom toga and a pair of leather sandals for an ounce of gold, or, some, small derivative of that. And today, I mean, at, $3,300 an ounce US for an ounce of gold, you'd get one hell of a nice men's suit and a really nice pair of shoes. That basically protects you from the money printer. And I think, Bitcoin is an even better instantiation of that, given that it truly is a fixed supply. So gold availability increases roughly 2% a year, whether that equates to the population growth or the economic, engine growth. Bitcoin is not, increasing at that same level. No matter how much we try, it will still only be 21 million. So you kind of get your position permanently in the network by buying Bitcoin and holding it. And that is a little bit different, I think. So Michael Saylor talks about the fact that, gold over 50 years, the supply will double. Bitcoin is not the same. So it is even better representation of protecting your wealth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's really like we are at the frontier of a brand new monetary system that's emerging that humankind hasn't seen before. Like it would be like to me, it would be like if you were in Florence when the Medici family was stamping the first florin and
right.
taking Europe out of the dark ages, and people could trust commerce again. And, Florence started trading with Venice again because of that. And then Europe started trading. So it went from the collapse of Rome to feudalism. And then that move is part of the reason Europe kind of, reemerged. And it feels like we now have this wonderfully engineered money that is going to change humanity. And you sound like just such a fool when you talk like that.
It's so true, Tom. It's funny that you say that. I hear myself talking sometimes to people, and then I sort of rewind it in my head and say, I sound crazy. I absolutely sound crazy.
Yeah. Oh, geez. Okay. So now I'm curious on how do you take some of your friends through the journey? So could you is it like just some of the practical things that maybe you could explain for somebody listening to this? Is it like a hot wallet on your phone to a hardware wallet that is offline? Do you tell them to just buy on an exchange? Can you how are you guiding some of your friends? And then I want to get into some of the stuff Bitcoin Mentor is doing as well. But just for your friends, do you just say, get exposure, doesn't matter how, go to,
yes. No,
okay.
I'm a little bit more prescriptive than that. So because, we have a very good relationship, and I believe you do too, with Bull Bitcoin, I think you can buy Bitcoin the right way through them. So the challenge, of course, is for a brand new Bitcoiner to, send Bull Bitcoin, $10,000 or $100,000 and get into the process of buying Bitcoin with them as a non-custodial exchange. You need a wallet to set up. So I typically, direct my friends now, because it's a little bit easier to, just work with one of our mentors to get set up properly with, a wallet, order a cold card, get that set up, and, use Nunchuck on their phone, get a cold card, and then you've got your cold signing device, and you're set up perfectly well right off the bat. And it takes a couple hours to do it. And keeping in mind that the guys that I'm talking to I'm not telling them to do $500. I'm saying, if you're going to do this, make it.
I like
worthwhile.
it. You're just telling them. Telling them to just go for it. Yeah.
And not financial advice, but for the people in our age bracket, they can afford to take a bit of a swing at it. Right now, as a contrast, our two adult daughters and their boyfriends, they're basically stacking every 2 weeks when they get paid. And I'm helping them with that and just sort of building up their position size. So depending on who it is, I think, just getting into the process and starting, I think, is kind of the first step. I think there's, a lot of narrative out there in the Bitcoin space that the only wrong allocation of Bitcoin is zero. So whether you start with $500 or $10,000 or 100,000, just, get started. Whatever is meaningful to you and your personal situation, I think it's worth doing. And then, like you and I both said, once you start allocating, you'll start doing a little bit more research. You'll start listening to some podcasts. You may, if you're not a reader, you may decide to read an article. You may listen to a podcast, watch Ben's YouTube videos, but you'll decide to learn a little bit more about it. And I think that process then, starts that flywheel going. And I think it's just a natural progression.
How do you explain a hardware wallet to some people who are new to this? I've noticed with my friends, what I've started saying, I'm saying like, listen, it's almost just like, think of it as a signing device, like this little piece of electronic equipment that, when you had a check back in the day, you had to sign the check to make the check work. So the hardware device is like this little sign. Yeah. So it's like you're digitally signing your Bitcoin transaction to make it work. And without that hardware device that does your digital signature that's unique to you, nobody can ever move your Bitcoin. That's what I found my way. That's my latest attempt, Mike.
I like it.
I failed at like all of these attempts.
Well, the terminology with Bitcoin is typically quite bad. So it's confusing at best. So there was, initially the narrative was around a hardware wallet. And I think that confused people, right? The thinking that
you thought the Bitcoin was in the wallet.
That's what they thought. The Bitcoin is in the wallet. And of course, that is not correct, right? I mean, the Bitcoin is on the blockchain and your set of addresses are reflected as your collection of addresses in your wallet. And then I typically describe the hardware signing device as you have just mentioned as signing a check. I typically talk about it like a key to a vault. So you're basically unlocking the Bitcoin that you have with that key to then decide to send it. And you don't need that hardware device to receive the Bitcoin because you've got your addresses on whatever wallet platform you're using, like Nunchuck or Sparrow Wallet, to receive Bitcoin. Like if you want to, at the end of this podcast, you want to decide to send me 1 Bitcoin, I don't need my hardware wallet for that. You can just do that.
I was thinking to send you one. It's funny you say that amount. I was thinking, just as a thank you, I was just going to flip you casually a Bitcoin. Yeah. Throw up a QR code and I'll
family car. But I mean, and so basically the way I talk about it, and a lot of the people that I talk to, have precious metals. It's like if you decide to, store your silver or gold in some kind of, offsite vault or even your own safe, you don't typically put the code to your safe on a sticky note right on the safe. You leave that somewhere else.
So like a digital key to the vault. Yeah, got it.
But it is confusing. I tell you, it's super confusing. It is,
especially for when I first learned, I'm like, what do you mean the Bitcoin's not in the wallet? I thought I had my wallet and that was being secure. And then I realized, like you said, it lives on the network, on the Bitcoin blockchain. I'm just controlling my own amount on that Bitcoin blockchain. So it never leaves the network itself. It's just
everywhere and nowhere.
Keys to my personal vault on that blockchain. It took me a little while to really fully grasp it. It seems so simple now, but at first you're like, what the heck are you talking about?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. And then Nunchuck, just for anyone listening, your hardware device is what you use as the key to your vault. But if you want to see how much Bitcoin you have or like see the balance and something, that's like an app you can run on your phone that is like a read-only view. It can't really do too much. It just shows you the balance of what you have.
Yeah, you can. I mean, it's basically the wallet is your interface with the blockchain that gives you your balances, et cetera. And as I said, you can receive with those apps on your phone without needing your hardware signing device. You just can't send that Bitcoin, or no one else can send that Bitcoin unless they have access to your keys. And your keys are effectively offline. So you create a transaction in your wallet, you send it effectively to your signing device. That's offline, either through scanning a QR code or downloading that transaction to a SD card, putting it into your signing device. Like for anyone watching, like that's a gold card queue. You just put it in there, sign the transaction, you verify it, make sure that that's what you wanted to create. You approve it, and then you put it back into the wallet, and then you broadcast it to the Bitcoin network. And that's basically how it works. And that's kind of why, Tom, as you say, signing a check, it's similar to that, or unlocking a vault. Basically, that's kind of the process. But, as I mentioned, I really do think in order for Bitcoin to be way more usable and adoption to increase, we almost have to get out of our own way with some of the terminology that we use as Bitcoiners, because it's confusing as hell sometimes.
Especially when you get comfortable with it and you learn it, you start throwing out these terms, hardware wallet and Nunchuck and this blue wallet and all these things. And people are like, what the heck are you talking about? But I agree. Okay. And then, sorry, what were you going to say, Mike?
Well, I was going to say that, most people have been comfortable throughout their adult lives about having their, financial life cared for by some other custodian,
Sure.
like, whether it's your brokerage account or your bank, or, even in your real estate, you have a property manager or whatever. Bitcoin is unique in the sense that you can do that, but because you can also take full self responsibility for it, it's a bit of a leap for a lot of people to say, whoa, I basically had, the banks look after this for me. I'm not sure I'm ready for it. But once people realize that they can, control an asset and take personal responsibility and sovereignty over it, I think the clouds often do clear, and they're like, wow, I can't believe that I can actually own and control an asset without asking permission from anyone else to, send a transaction. Like, you don't have to ask anyone to send me that Bitcoin at the end of this call. You can do it without going to the bank and requesting a wire transfer. You can just do it yourself. And it is a paradigm shift, but it's also liberating as well, just to know that you can control it.
It's funny you're saying that right now. I just got off the phone with the bank because I have a credit line on one of our rental properties that I hadn't used. It was one of those home line plans where the credit line grows as the mortgage is getting paid down, and literally never touched it. I don't know, a decade. And they even called saying, you should use this credit line. When the bank calls you and saying, you have this product, you have this thing. I'm like, I just don't want to use it. And finally, Nick and I were chatting. We're like, let's use that for something. And I tried to use it, and I tried to make a transfer from it, but the transfer went to the checking account and then it disappeared. Like, it literally disappeared. So then I had to call the bank, but it showed a balance on my credit line that, like, I'm owing that much that I had just transferred from this credit line that I had never used before. So I called the bank saying, look, I don't know what's going on, but like, I'm trying to use this credit line that you guys have been calling me about. I'm finally using it. And then they were confused for a little while. And they're like, oh, we got to send you to the fraud department because you haven't used it for so long. It's in a pending state. Like, the transaction is like stuck in this pending, then I go to the fraud department and they're like, well, who are you again? Even though I just answered all the questions, you know how it goes, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, what's your address? And they're like, are you sure that's your postal code? I'm like, I'm 100% sure that's my postal code, and your email address and all this stuff. And then they finally say, like, well, what are you using the credit line for? Yeah. And I just can't.
And then you told them, I'm sending it to Bull Bitcoin to buy a bunch of Bitcoin. And then
I dare not say that. No, I actually can't resist. So I want to have some fun, and I try to do it in the nice way, I promise you. But I say, I'm using it to buy drugs.
Right.
Because I just want to hear what they say. And then there's a pause. And I've done this at the bank when I'm sending a wire or two, but I do that with a smile. They can see me. At least they know I'm joking. And then I can re-explain myself. And I'm like, no, I'm just doing it. I'm using it for an investment. And then the next question, this just happened like an hour ago. They're like, well, what type of investment are you making? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, what do you what is the right answer here? Because if I say the wrong thing here, I can't use the credit line that you've been telling me I should be using, So I just gave it like a very generic, like, real estate, because I know in their mind, if it's stocks or equities or real estate, it's quote unquote probably going to be safe.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, it's just real estate, and I kind of got through it. And even then, actually, I have to update my ID, and I have to go into a branch now with like my passport and my ID to get access to it and all that kind of stuff. So it's so frustrating after you've used Bitcoin for some time. You just you look back at that system going, oh my gosh, how archaic is it?
No kidding. It's pretty restrictive. I just not without naming names, I had a call yesterday with a gentleman who wants to get into Bitcoin, roughly our age. Was asking me the process. I set him up with Bull Bitcoin. He was going to make a transfer.
Let me guess, the transfer got frozen.
He basically emailed me last night and said, I'm not going to say which bank, but they basically frozen my accounts. Yeah. What can I do? And we had talked about this actually on our call. Like I said, you're going to run into some problems. You work with one of these banks that I know is a total blocker of this. And the problem is they hate to see money leaving their system, and they're going to really put up some blockers for you. And sure enough, they did. So he's now opening an account with a credit union today, and he's moving all of his funds. It was basically, I think, the last straw for him. He's like, this is not my money, apparently, even though it's, a balance in my account. If I can't do what I want with it, is it really my money? And that's kind of what he opened his eyes to. So he's probably, I'm guessing, at the front end of this journey, probably going to realize more and more that this seems like a pretty good alternative to go into an asset he can truly control.
Yeah. 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 We've all been in that state. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly what he's been through. And you have to call, and it's just a hassle. I had one person tell me that they don't believe, or the Bitcoin doesn't, the bank doesn't allow transfers to anything to do with Bitcoin. And I'm like, can you just like pass me to a manager, please? Like, can I please just speak to somebody else? Because, anyway,
I think I'm capable to make these decisions myself. I don't need a young, inexperienced clerk telling me what I can and can't do with my money.
It was, you just felt so defeated in that moment. You're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm begging here,
Yeah.
But anyway, you usually get it resolved. So like this gentleman's saying, okay, so I'm curious, when people call a Bitcoin mentor, what is the, are there certain hot topics? Because I can tell from some people that have been in Bitcoin for some time, from our clients, sometimes it's either a multisig, and I don't know if maybe you can explain that, or if estate planning. Is there like a common theme that you're finding once people are set up with a Bitcoin mentor sets them up with a wallet, with one of your mentors guiding people? Is there like, what's the next natural? We talked about this a little bit at the conference together, but like, what's the most common thing you're getting asked? I'm just curious.
Well, I think that, when I started the business, I recognized a real need that I had that was becoming a sort of a burning issue on how best to deal with that. And that for me was inheritance planning. And, I've put a lot of, blood, sweat, and tears and capital into understanding what Bitcoin is. If something happens to me, I want to make sure that the Bitcoin that I've accumulated is treated as, the important asset that it is for my family. So I wanted to make sure that the Bitcoin transfers safely, the keys to the Bitcoin transfer safely to my beneficiaries, being my wife and my kids. So that has to be done in a very specific way to make sure that occurs. And what we talk about at Bitcoin Mentor is you can have the best will and estate plan ever conceived that, covers all the legal aspects of your will and estate. But if you fail to transfer the keys to the Bitcoin, despite what it says in the legal documents, if those keys are lost, the Bitcoin is lost. So we deal with our clients to make sure that the inheritance plan is set up in such a way that the beneficiaries that you choose will receive instructions on how to access that Bitcoin. And then, the appropriate, will and estate and tax consequences can be dealt with at that time. But that's a better solution than, not having the keys transfer and the Bitcoin being lost. So we focus on that. And that tends to be, for our clients, a real important aspect that they may not start with, Tom, but they eventually all get there. They've spent a lot of time understanding what Bitcoin was or is. And they're often, in a situation where, either they're married or they have kids that haven't spent the time and don't really know, what they actually own as a family. And they want to make sure that those Bitcoin are not lost. And even some of that knowledge transfers over. So we have a lot of clients that are, going through this process, setting up their multisig vaults, which I will explain, putting an inheritance plan in place. And then they're actually deciding, what? It's probably going to be my daughter that is going to be the executor. I want to make sure that they understand Bitcoin as well. I'd like to get some sessions for, my daughter or my son or my wife to spend some time with you to understand what it is we own and how to work with the Bitcoin once they do own it. And so we're basically an education company, and we're just trying to, spread the Bitcoin word and bring in as many people on board as we can. And it seems as though that's often like not just a single person in a family, but more than one. They want to, make sure that this asset is treated with the respect that it deserves.
I didn't realize you were doing calls for other members of the family, which makes perfect sense that the other members of the family should get educated on what is taking place. That's smart. Okay. Yeah. And then you mentioned the term multi-sig, which Bitcoiners throw around a lot.
Oh yeah. Again, another one of these terms that's
I know. Can you, it's a powerful thing to know about because a lot of people don't. So can you just explain that?
So we talked initially about, having that signing device, which I mentioned. There's terminology out there that there's no counterparty risk in Bitcoin, right? There's no one you have to rely on to make sure that your Bitcoin is going to be there. But you and your key is a single point of failure. If you lose your signing device or the seed words that are associated with that wallet, you've lost your Bitcoin. And that's kind of what I'm talking about in that inheritance plan. So a multisig wallet is, to use a simple example, is a 2 of 3 multisig. So you've got 3 keys that can sign a transaction to move your Bitcoin. For any transaction to be approved, you need 2 of those 3 keys in any order to sign and broadcast a transaction. So what we find is our clients will decide that they don't want to be subject to single point of failure. So they'll have a multi-sig vault, which is accessible with the 3 keys, and they geographically distribute those keys. So, for someone like you may have, 1 key at your, bank safe deposit box, 1 key at, your vacation home, and 1 key, somewhere else. That it makes it difficult to move. And you have to be very, specific about the decision to move your Bitcoin. So it's a process. You got to sign the transaction with 2 of those 3 keys in order to move your Bitcoin. So it just makes
security. It's a security thing, and an estate planning kind of thing. If you wanted to set it up where multiple people hold your keys,
that's right. Yeah, and that tends to be the easiest way to facilitate an inheritance planning protocol, because should you pass, your beneficiaries just need to know how to access 2 of those 3 keys, and then they can, eventually move that Bitcoin and put it into a new vault and reestablish it. So it provides some level of flexibility and security and peace of mind.
And so, Bitcoin Mentor, when someone comes to you, because I'm starting to get asked this more and more. So if they came to me and said, Tom, I want to take the next level on my security. I want it so that I distribute some of these keys. I want to set up a multi-signature wallet now instead of my single signature wallet. Is that something Bitcoin Mentor, is that like something you guys do? And how does somebody book that? Like, what's the process to work with you on that? Because I think that's the number one thing I'm starting to get asked, right? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, no, we definitely do that. We tend to, depending on, we're meeting our clients where they're at. So if they're coming to us and they've already got a single sig wallet set up, and they're starting to, as I joked, they're laying awake at night at 3 a.m. saying, I'm worried about this single sig wallet. I really want to distribute that risk vector. I don't want to be subject to a $5 wrench attack and be forced to, hand over my Bitcoin. I'd like to distribute those keys. So they, I can't even spend the Bitcoin even if I wanted to. So we typically then, see where they're at, we don't start our clients off with a multi-sig wallet right off.
Sure. I know this is,
they need to understand how Bitcoin works. They need to understand how to create a transaction, how to sign a transaction, receive, delete a wallet, restore a wallet, understand the process. Because we don't want to set someone up with something that, they don't know how to use when it comes time to use it. So it's part of that educational journey. So we find that once they understand, the basics, they've worked with it, and they've got, a material amount saved in Bitcoin, then they may decide that they want to add this multi-sig feature to their, security plan, if you will. And the multi-signature is, again, not unlike a vault, or, even if you think of your bank safe deposit box. When you open your bank safe deposit box, you need your key and then the key from the bank to open your safe deposit box. That's basically a 2 of 2 multi-sig, right? You need both keys to open that safe deposit box. With a multi-sig, it's basically you control all 3 keys, and you need 2 of the 3 of those keys to open that vault and sign a transaction. And that's basically how it's set up. And so to answer your question, yes, we definitely help people on that process. We typically don't do it on the first meeting. So it's a bit of a process to kind of make sure we are setting our clients up for success so they understand how everything works before they sort of transition into that setup.
Yeah. And I've explained it. I like the vault stuff. I'm going to start using that because I've explained it sometimes as just like a bank account. Like sometimes you need multiple signatures to make a withdrawal in a bank account. It could be like both to sign, all parties to sign, or any party to sign. I'm like, well, a multi-sig is you need like 2 of these 3 signatures to move it. But I like the keys of the vault. I'm going to start using that more and more. Well,
you use that one because you run a business. So you know what that's all about. Like maybe you and Nick both need to sign transactions over a certain amount. Or or Nick can sign transaction under a certain amount. So that's exactly what it is.
I put limits on Nick. That's the way we work. Okay, I can sign anything. That's the way it operates over here. Okay, Mike, just so you know, Nick, I got to keep him under control.
Yeah. Okay. So Nick's the guy who talked about sending me that 1 Bitcoin.
Oh gosh. Yes. Good luck with that. Yeah, for sure. Yes, it is. Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. Okay. And then there's other things, since we're talking about this, there's things like time locks that you can do with Bitcoin that, if you're going to sign a transaction that the Bitcoin can't move for a certain amount of time. So like the amount of, and I'm only sharing that or just mentioning that very briefly, just because sometimes people question the security of it. I'm like, it's actually unlimited. There are unlimited options of how to secure this once you go down this path. But the beginning is like what you said. How you gonna just understand how this process works. And something you said earlier really reminded me of something I get all my friends to do. It's like set up a wallet and then delete the wallet where you crap your pants. Right. So you can just put a small amount of Bitcoin on that wallet if you want, but if you set it up properly, once you delete it and then restore it, your money's there.
It's
and
there.
It is the most petrifying thing. It's amazing. It's so freeing once you understand that. You're like, wait a second. This, as long as I know how to restore my hardware wallet, I can like smash this thing and lose it. And I can get another one and get access to my Bitcoin again. And it's just the most absolutely freeing thing. But it's also the most absolutely petrifying thing when you do it the first time.
It is. Yeah. I wouldn't make a habit of smashing your hardware wallet to try it. No. But yes, it is liberating.
And the software is getting so easy now, or so much better now, because before, when somebody in our team was sending from an exchange to their own wallet, and we didn't really know what we were doing, you didn't get a notification on the wallet sometimes for like 30 minutes because it wasn't reading the way the network works now. Like you pretty much always get almost instant notifications that things moving around. But before, you had to wait, and we were pacing up and down here in the Rockstar office for like half an hour. And we thought,
especially when you send your first transactions, right?
And this person sent a fairly meaningful amount that they should not have sent as their first transaction, right?
Yeah.
So we went to full panic mode for like 30 minutes until we saw that it arrived. And I was like, holy smokes. Anyway,
it's crazy.
Yeah. So, okay. So with Bitcoin Mentor now, for anyone listening to this that wanted to book, some time, is it a membership they're buying from Bitcoin? How is Bitcoin Mentor set up? Like how do people engage with Bitcoin?
Fee for service. So we don't care. It makes no difference to us how much Bitcoin you have. We do not want to know how much Bitcoin you have. We basically charge for the services we provide through these one-on-one video calls, not unlike a podcast episode. And we work with you to, walk you through this process. And we just effectively charge by the hour or through a package of sessions. So that's kind of how we do it now. We also have other resources available to all our clients that is basically called the Orange Circle, which is kind of a insider group that has, live chat and regular meetings with our mentors to, ask questions that you don't get to ask to your normie friends. That basically gives an opportunity to hang out with Bitcoiners and just talk Bitcoin. So we do all of those things. We're constantly refining our model and trying to deliver for what our clients want most. And it's a relatively nascent industry on doing this educational process for our clients. So we're continually refining, trying to figure out what they want and how best to deliver it. So right now it's basically fee for service. And the benefit of those listening to this podcast is, as I mentioned earlier, both Aiden and Anthony are mentors with our group that are also Rockstar personnel that really understand what the Rockstar members need, and also as Bitcoiners understand what Bitcoiners need. So it's a great match, and I hope you don't mind me mentioning that on the podcast.
No, not at all. So you can go to, so the URL is bitcoinmentor.com, correct?
.io.
Bitcoinmentor.io. That's right. Bitcoinmentor.io. And you can see all the mentors there. But the membership that you just mentioned, I'm fairly new to understanding it. So that's something someone could participate in, and then I can get a more constant, regular access to one of the mentors. Can you explain that a little further? Sorry.
Yeah. So basically we have, as I mentioned, roughly 20 mentors, and we have this Orange Circle, basically insider group. And so for example, in addition to the one-on-one sessions that you have with your, designated mentor, if you have something that just comes up, you're like, that example you mentioned about, I sent a transaction to my wallet, it hasn't shown up yet. I'm freaking out. So you would basically just drop that in the chat and say, what's going on here? And one of the mentors would just reply and say, this is probably what's happening. The the exchange maybe hasn't propagated it yet to the network. It's not shown up in the mempool. Your wallet hasn't seen it. They made batch transactions. It probably is going to go within the next 30 minutes. Don't worry about it. So there's a lot of these kind of things that, as we understand Bitcoin more and more, a lot of these questions arise and then dissipate once you learn more about it. So we are there basically just as a resource to answer any of the questions in a safe environment that you can trust the folks you're asking the questions to. So we do that. Then we also
that's handy because then you can get access. Because I just remember with like starting my journey, like you had no one to speak to, so now you can reach out to somebody. Yeah. Okay, and that's an add-on when you buy, so you can become part of that. You can choose to become part of that if you choose.
We're doing it now. You get a membership if you buy a package. So our packages are typically 5 or 10 sessions. So any 5 or 10 session package, you get a membership to the.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
And it's more of just an add-on, just to give you that reassurance that you are asking a question in a safe environment. You're not just going on, some Telegram chat where you're
which is what I was doing.
Yeah.
Looking at like, am I doing this right? Did I set this up right? Okay.
Exactly. And
so the Bitcoin Mentor is helping the whole industry grow up here a little bit, because now you can get this kind of access to good information. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's kind of our view. And of course, I'm biased. I think the people that we have working in our group are just incredible folks with super high integrity that just want to, they're all Bitcoiners and have been Bitcoiners for a long time. They're all doing it because it's a passion of theirs, not because they're trying to, get rich selling services. They just want to help onboard that next wave of Bitcoiners. I think we all feel, yourself included likely, that you're on a bit of a mission. You want to spread this knowledge that to people that need to hear it, because we feel that there's knowledge that we have that we would like to benefit others with. And I think that's kind of what all our mentors are like as well. So they get totally jazzed by just helping people with their Bitcoin journey. And I had the good fortune of spending 5 days with them in Vegas, and for me it was amazing, because I worked with these individuals every day or every week. We'd have our calls for over a year, and I'd never met any of them face to face.
Yeah, that's wild.
It was amazing. And the beauty of it was, so although I knew these people remotely, once I got to, shake their hands, give them a hug, it was like, man, we've been friends for 20 years. Like it was, awesome. We have such an amazing group of people. And I felt so privileged to, be in this situation, to start this business. And for me, it was a total, rebirth almost. Like, here I am, 54, working in this amazing industry with all these young, smart people. And it was like, wow, I couldn't have made a better decision. Like, it's just so much fun, so energizing, and so rewarding just to be able to, talk about this and do what I love and spend time with people that I care about.
Yeah. Awesome. It's so cool to hear you say that. And it's a two-way street. You, Bitcoin Mentor, you guys have been coming out to our Your Life, Your Terms events. Yes. And it's really meaningful to me, because I just feel this is something that people need to understand and explore, even just a little bit. And to have you guys there, it just means a lot to me to have you there, because I know that if someone has a question, here's great people. I know they're going to be taken care of. So it's just, it's probably confusing. I think it's becoming less confusing when people can't come to our events and are like, why is there like Bitcoin, bull Bitcoin's here? What's Bitcoin Mentor doing? But I think it's such a critical part to be able to live your own life on your terms, is to have your purchasing power protected, and for you to control your purchasing power. I think a lot of people are starting to understand where it fits. And even if they don't, Mike, we're still going to be doing it. So, so we're hoping
as an observation, just the event that you just had in the spring that I attended, this first one I attended, of course, Ben and Nathan have been to other ones. I mentioned to, our team that it was such a great event to be at, because whether or not, the folks there were already Bitcoiners, there was this sort of common ground that we all shared, that we knew there was something wrong. Most of your members are, addressing that problem with, improving their life on their terms through real estate, which is amazing. And they're doing that already. So they're already taking their life into their own hands. And, whether Bitcoin fits in or not, that's okay, because we have this sort of common ground that we can start at to talk about, the challenges that we're all facing and what we're doing to, fix it. Whether you're, the way that you decide to deal with it is through real estate or precious metals or Bitcoin. I think we're all in the same team. We're just trying to all make our lives better. And totally. You may not want to hear that Bitcoin is a solution. That's totally fine. I tend to believe it is one of the best solutions, but it may not be for everyone. And as an example, like you and I had only met through calls and video calls. And when we met in person, it was like we'd, known each other for a long time.
For sure.
And I'm grateful for that, because you don't find that all the time in everyday life. So you can start at this higher level for, building on that rapport. And it's amazing.
Yeah, we're honored. We're honored, Mike. So thanks for doing what you're doing. I'm so glad that you approached Ben that day that you chatted with him, BTC Sessions, and you guys got together the way you have, and the way it's connected with Aiden and Anthony here at Rockstar, and now coming to our events. Like, that's all because you had that discussion. When you think of it, it's just weird how the world evolves. It's like, it's rather beautiful. So yeah, thanks for doing what you're doing, Mike. Really appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time to share your story. I love chatting with you, and I didn't know some piece of your story, so I learned more about what you're doing. So that's it. We'll leave it at that. If you want to check out Bitcoin Mentors, it's bitcoinmentor.io. And Mike, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom.